Simply a matter of time before the corporations can no longer rationalize their moral obligation to maintain their employees for the sake of the system. The cost differential between giving a human being a living wage versus automation will be far too dramatic. It will be far too cheap to mechanize. Of course, economists will argue this and they'll say, oh, there's a trickle-down effect, and since the cost of production is consistently becoming cheaper, the cost of goods will become cheaper, and therefore purchasing power requirements of the individual becomes less. Sure, this might be historically true. I guess you could call it efficiency-based devaluation. However, that competitive decision is entirely contingent upon the whims of the manufacturer. Therefore, there is a contradiction of motives. Remember, they get the machine so they can cut costs, so they can make more profit from their current price structure. Once this occurs, we're going to see more unemployment and more instability. And sadly, instability is often the prerequisite for social change. The problems constitute what we call biosocial pressures. The more destabilized things become, the more motivation there will be to seek an alternative. Of course, this is a delicate balance. So I personally do not want to see any more suffering on this planet, but my feelings have no relevance to the patterns of social evolution. The Zeitgeist movement hopes to ease this issue by not only providing people with an alternative in an intellectual and statistically valid manner, but also a strategy to push forward, to essentially push the establishment to release their reins of arrogance, power, and inefficiency and join the rest of the world in a common goal of uninhibited sustainability. Hence, it is a mass awareness campaign by promoting essentially a collective consciousness shift, if you will. We do this through a relentless global public awareness campaign, which will, in time, hopefully become so large in each country that the establishment will have no choice but to pay attention. It is based on the model of Gandhi and Martin Luther King Jr. If the establishment orders and government do not recognize this direction, then the public has a very unique position. We don't have to participate in the games that have been set up. Nonviolent, peaceful non-participation is a possible path. Frankly, I hope it won't be needed. However, I think we should be realistic. If the people of the world can see this alternative, learn about it, understand it, and support it, then no government, army, or bureaucracy in existence can stand in the way of a critical mass of global proportions. But again, I hope it doesn't come to that. I hope that the powers that be can come to terms with the fluid transition and see the merit of what we're talking about. But as we have shown, the established orders do not have that propensity. It's going to take influence, that's for sure. Given that, one of the more specific tactics we want to utilize to engage the public is to build a model city, utilizing the methods and understandings we have set forth thus far. This city system could be used as a hub for research and exposure. The public, along with world leaders, would be invited to visit and experience the basis of this approach in a real-life setting. Then, in time, the hope is that a country, seeing the efficiency of this small aspect, will pick up the city model and apply it within its own system. The city system, of course, isn't a resource-based economy, but it has some very notable attributes in a systems approach. Then, in time, we hope these city systems will begin to spread to other regions, slowly wearing down the market system by their extreme efficiency. Hopefully, the logic will spread to greater forms of central planning and resource management, and hopefully the people of the world will awaken to a new paradigm. Again, there are many angles of interaction. There could be an independent council that consistently invites all world leaders to come to an independent meeting about this project and hope that maybe they would come together to talk about it. There are many other things I could say on this complex issue of the transition. And due to the allotment of time, I really don't want to spend that much more on it. What I will say, though, for those that continue to harp on it, wanting details and details, we can't do anything until there's a mass awareness. So let's focus on that as the first step. In conclusion, the most common negative reaction people have who consider the tenets of a resource-based economy tend to come up with something called human nature. The argument is that humans are inherently competitive, greedy, blindly self-serving, implying that no matter how technically good things are in society, there will always be corrupt people who want to compete and abuse others and seek dominance, etc. Is it against human nature to cooperate? That's the central question. It certainly seems that way, doesn't it? If you look at the historical record, you'll find that there's an endless series of wars, genocides, conquests, competitive tendencies, and power abuses. And given that is the pattern we recognize historically, I guess it's safe to assume that it must be a set human nature to behave in ways that are historically reoccurring. However, we also see that human beings do cooperate, and we cooperate quite well in certain environments. For example, in the military, cooperation is immense. It is a collective. The core interest is culminated. They work together and do so very well. Granted, they are competing against a common enemy, which is another army usually, but it's still cooperation nevertheless, even if it's isolated. Therefore, the environment plays a critical role on whether we decide to compete or cooperate. It's based on values, as groomed by the environment, not genetics. Remember, humans have been living in scarcity for thousands of years, battling each other for resources. While this cultural pattern is still very much in existence today, you have to remember that our current model of society is based on the assumption of the persistence of scarcity. If we were to eliminate the basic environmental cause, we will likely eliminate most competitive effects. And as far as genetics and behavior, please understand the functionality of gene expressions are very much contingent upon environmental stimulus, especially in regard to behavior. Genes are not autonomous initiators of commands. They, in effect, produce proteins. They don't cause behaviors in any sense of the idea. In the words of Professor of Biology and Neurology at Stanford University, Dr. Robert Sapolsky, genes are rarely about inevitability, especially when it comes to humans, the brain, or behavior. They are about vulnerability, propensities, and tendencies. Now, of course, neurochemicals and physiological traits do set propensities for a person's reactions and social gravitation. It is the environment which is most responsible for our values and behavior. I have found no concrete evidence to support the idea that there is a predetermined human nature in this sense. Our values, methods, and actions are developed and derived from experiences. The central point is that it requires a transition of culture to assist in this new worldview being realized and identified with. Given that, I have one final point I would like to leave you with. Anthropological studies have found that cooperation between non-human primates often comes from the notion of kinship. We humans share this as well. For example, most people tend to regard their family higher than their friends. Just watch The Sopranos and you'll see this association in play. There's their family, then there's their mafia family. It's just a clique. And these cliques develop by association.